In today's video, we have all the latest NHL trade talk. We're talking about teams like the Maple Leafs, the Canucks, the Calgary Flames, the Seattle Kraken, as well as the Winnipeg Jets. Could they maybe move one of their longest standing players in the franchise? Plus, we also have news from the Philadelphia Flyers, and the KHL appears to be possibly canceling the rest of their regular season. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have the latest NHL rumors and some news to talk about here today. First up, we got news on the Philadelphia Flyers. Of course, Daniel Briere, who was heavily involved in the GM talks in Montreal, appears to be remaining with the Flyers organization, but getting a promotion to officially be the assistant general manager. Of course, he's worked as a GM in different levels at their lower level minor league team, so he appears to be getting bumped up here to the big club. Obviously, he's been involved with a lot of their meetings, somebody they heavily respect and trust, and we're certainly looking to find opportunities for, but they weren't also going to hold him back to get a big promotion elsewhere. So it looks as though since things didn't work out for him to get the job with the Habs, that he will be getting a bigger role with the Flyers organization. Now, we also got some news out of the KHL that appears as though they are going to, looks like they're taking a vote. I don't think it's official as of yet, but they're supposed to be voting on possibly canceling the remainder of their regular season, and then once the Olympics are over, heading straight to their playoffs, and the playoffs would be done by point percentage, since not all teams have an equal number of games played at this point. So there's a lot of reasons that are being speculated as to why this is, but I think the biggest one would be fair to say the large number of players that are participating in the Olympics, but I still think it's a little odd in a way, because they have over 100 players in the Olympics, so I understand why they might take a break, but why they couldn't pick up when they get back, I don't know. I know some people were questioning. Of course, there's the situation between Russia and Ukraine right now. Is that going to escalate? Nobody really knows. I think everybody's kind of hoping, cooler heads prevail and nothing ends up in a larger scale war of any kind, of course. But I think it's premature to say that it has anything to do with that. It's probably mostly due to the large number of players in the KHL. I don't know. I'm not really sure what their COVID situation is like over there either, so I don't know. But certainly some developments there in Russia. Be interesting to see, if players end up coming back to North America. There's a fair bit of North American players playing over there too. So I guess we'll probably find out a little bit more here as the next little while goes on during the Olympics. But it looks as though they're going to be possibly canceling it, heading straight to the playoffs and get their season over with a little bit sooner. Now, when it comes to the All-Star game going on this weekend, of course, the skills event took place yesterday. The All-Star game is actually going on today as I'm recording this. The Metropolitan and Pacific Division played earlier with the Metro beating them 6-4 over the Pacific, and the Central was playing the Atlantic, and as of the recording of this, it was 7-5, just about at the end of the second period. So we'll see how the rest of that goes. I'm not sure what your feelings are on the All-Star game, or if it's something that still interests you or not, but I'd love to know what your thoughts down in the comments, what you think of the All-Star game. Do you think the format should be changed? Do you watch it? Does it interest you anymore? I'd love to know your thoughts, so let me know in the comment section. Now, on to the trade talk here. We have a variety of things we're going to look at. One I found a real interesting report was from the Winnipeg Free Press, Mike McIntyre, talking about the possibility of the Winnipeg Jets, probably not now at the deadline, but in the offseason, maybe trading Mark Scheifele. Now, of course, Scheifele's kind of been considered their franchise player, a high draft pick who's materialized into being their number one center. But obviously, the Winnipeg Jets are not having a great season. They had a couple of years back, they were one of the league's top teams, went to a Western final. I know it's a team that I was really, thought they would be contenders for a while, but things have kind of changed a little bit. They lost a lot of their blue line. They tried to rebuild it. It hasn't quite worked out. They do have an excellent goalkeeper, but if he doesn't have a great game, sometimes they can't seem to keep up. I know Blake Wheeler, who's their captain, has been out for a long time this year. I don't know what they do. I mean, this would be a tough choice. Scheifele comes with a couple more years on his contract at $6.25 million, which really isn't bad for what he brings to you. If he were on another team as a number two center, for example, that would bring a lot of depth. And if he's your number two guy, then, like I said, a lot of teams would love to have him. So I'm sure there would be plenty of interest. He's an incredibly smart player, a student of the game, well respected, well liked. I know he had that situation against the Habs in the playoffs last year. year, but outside of that, he's had a pretty solid career with no stains on it at all. So I mean, he's a great player. That would be a big deal to trade him, just like when they traded Laine. Do the Jets try to get a good haul return and kind of start over again? I mean, it's hard to say, but the report indicated that they feel that he's looked disengaged, his body language has been off, and they kind of half wonder if maybe he would benefit from a fresh start, if maybe he might be contemplating that he would like a fresh start. We really don't know that. And like I said, this is not something that we'd expect to see at the deadline. But if the Jets do fall out of the playoffs, I do think it's possible we could see a few Jets deals. I think it's possible they could trade Andrew Kopp, who might be difficult to re-sign this summer. That's a possibility as well. And anybody else, like maybe a Paul Stastny, for example, could attract interest on other teams for a deadline acquisition too. So I can see the Jets making a few moves before the deadline. If they do contemplate a Scheifele trade, I think there'd be lots of interest and be something we've seen this summer, but I'm not yet convinced, and I don't really think we have any reason to speculate that he would be traded. I just found this article interesting on one writer's perspective, suggesting they feel that it might be something they consider here in the short term. So let me know what you think on that and what the Jets should do to get themselves back on track. Now, of course, we know there's been a lot of interest in JT Miller with the Vancouver Canucks, getting a lot of interest around the NHL, and the Canucks and Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin are going to have some interesting yet tough decisions to make as they approach the deadline. Rutherford's made it known that obviously they don't have enough cap flexibility for a team that's not a playoff team. They're way too tight to the cap and they need some flexibility. So it's quite likely that at least one player, likely a forward, will be dealt ahead of the deadline to give them some flexibility. So whether that be Miller, Besser, Garland, Pearson, any of those guys could be the guy that ends up going. And really, to be honest, I think JT Miller will probably get the biggest amount of interest. I know a lot of players, our teams would probably really like Brock Besser too, but because of the contract that's coming for a qualifying offer for him, that might deter some. It just depends on how they feel about him. But with Miller being such a hard guy to play against, putting up lots of points, seems to be getting better as he gets older, a couple more years, short term on his contract with a decent amount of money. Really, like, you get a couple of runs with this guy in your lineup, I think there will be tons of interest. Now, according to latest reports, there is some interest on the side of the Maple Leafs. Now, of course, we don't know that Toronto will really add in the forward group. I'm going to mark this rumor as a little bit less likely than some of the other ones we've seen. I think it's more likely that the Leafs trying to add on the blue line, especially some insurance in case Jake Muzzin gets hurt. I think that's the more likely scenario. I think they'd have trouble adding in both spots unless they move out some money, which would be tricky to do. But if they were able to do the type of deal, the trade that was suggested here would be Alex Kerfoot, Nick Robertson, and Rodion and Muriel would be the likely package that Vancouver would request here. It's been rumored it's going to take a solid 3 assets to land Miller, with a couple of those assets being prospects and at least one roster player who could help the team now. So that would make sense that would be the kind of package that it would take to get the deal done. I think you could make an argument that the Leafs would be a better team with JT Miller in the mix. But I'm not sure that that's really what we're going to see here. I think it's more likely, like I said, that they add on the blue line. They have a lot of good forwards, a pretty good offensive powerhouse there. I'm not really sure they're really going to mess with that a whole lot. And I think that as much as there probably is some interest, and I think they really need to explore all options to make the team better, at the same time, I think it's less likely another team will come along. There was rumor about the Rangers being heavily interested in Miller, and I know there's been some talk saying that the Canucks should try to get Lafreniere as the return package, or even maybe Capo Caco. I don't know if the Rangers would want to part with either of those players, but it's certainly an interesting thought to think about, landing one of those top young players, high draft picks for their team, to see if they can really ignite their careers moving forward. But we'll see. Should the Leafs go after Miller? I'm not convinced that's the best move to make the team better, but I can understand why there would be interest. Now, there's also reports from Calgary hockey now suggesting that the Calgary Flames will likely add in the forward group, which I think is a real solid possibility. And they're suggesting that the player that's being targeted here is Jordan Eberle of the Seattle Kraken. Now, it's well known that the Kraken are pretty much open for business. Ron Francis appears to have let a lot of other teams around the league know that they're open to a lot of different types of deals, and there's not too many untouchable players in their organization. So it's possible Eberle could be had for the right right price. Problem is, though, is he comes with 2 more years at $5.5 million. Eberle's a good hockey player. Somebody I know I've watched for a long time, back in his World Junior days, even in early days in Edmonton. But he's been really inconsistent the last few years. Got off to a hot start in Seattle, and now he hasn't scored in like 20 games. I mean, he's had the same thing with the Islanders. Key player at times, scored some big goals, but then he would be cold for the longest stretch of time. I'm not really sure that that's Calgary's best move, especially if they're going to have to give up like a first-round pick or something like that. I don't see that being something they'd be willing to pay for him. I mean, I don't think he'd have any issue going to Calgary. He does have a modified no trade, so I can see that he probably would be okay with that. He's played in Alberta before, obviously a long-time Oiler, but I don't know. I'm not really sure that's the Calgary Flames' best choice here. If they're going to acquire a forward with term, which I think is a real possibility that we could see, I think it's more likely they target a guy like Tyler Toffoli in Montreal, who comes a little bit cheaper and really, to me, a little bit more pedigree. I mean, look at what he's accomplished in the playoffs, especially. Better resume than Eberle and a cheaper price tag on the cap hit. So to me, I think that would make more sense. But I guess the other way to look at this is they've got some real important free agent contracts or RFA and UFA this summer. We don't know what's going on with Johnny Gaudreau. No extension yet. Matthew Tkachuk's not extended. He's an RFA. Andrew Mangiapane's having a career season, UFA status coming up here soon. I guess he's a year away from being a UFA. He's still RFA, but still needs a new deal. Like, they have some important players to sign, and they're going to have a hard time getting it all done. So taking on another player with term will be challenging, but at the same time, it could be insurance in case one of their other forwards leaves. But with what you're going to pick up by trade for the playoffs at the deadline, there's no way you're going to even be able to replace Gaudreau or Tkachuk. Maybe Mangiapane, I guess, but that's about as far as they could get. Like, Tkachuk and Gaudreau are unique special players that would be difficult to do. I'm not convinced they're in danger of losing Tkachuk, at least not yet. But the Flames and Gaudreau, I don't really know what the hold-up is getting an extension done. If it takes to the offseason, I guess we'll find out if the long-time rumors of him leaving Calgary will be true, or if he'll end up inking a new extension. Only time will tell. So let me know your thoughts on what you think the Flames should do. Is Eberle the right guy? Is Toffoli the right guy? Or is it somebody else? What should they do to bolster their shot of having a better chance at playoffs and success in the playoffs? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all of this news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.